back in Ecuador, where it's nice and windy, but I'm across the world. And one of the things I love about our planet being a ball is that I can talk to the future. And so I'm talking to the future. And my brother Kamau Abayomi is in Japan late at night. And how's your Thursday been, brother?
It's been active. I've been walking around all day, getting some meditations in at a couple of little power spots here. I'm in Kyoto in Japan right now, so
Is
but a
that
lot of walking.
okay? So it's like regrounding yourself back in to a new land again. Is that how you work that, or is that your normal path?
Well, I mean, I've been over the last couple of years been establishing a connection with Kyoto specifically, just because it's a city for me. Like I come here and get really centered and
Mm,
nourished and creative and just I've definitely had lifetimes here, like for sure.
very
And
nice.
so when I come here, I'm able to go in a different way than I do in Bali.
Right,
So
right. Well, I this is the first time we've ever had a chance to talk, but what I was thinking about the other day, and I was thinking about the Black Divinity Meditation Day that was your brainchild, and I got excited about and shared it as many places I could, and I was really curious about where that started for you and how that went.
um, well, yeah. So Black Divinity Meditation Day, it came through as I can't really call it a brainchild. It really bypassed the brain. It was like, oh, I'm doing this.
Right.
It was like it wasn't a whole big thought process, but it did come in response to something that had happened, which
Mm,
was essentially an opportunity that was denied. I was, anticipating doing something, presenting something at this festival, and that opportunity was taken away after they said I was able to do it and it was going to happen. And then last minute, it's like, no, it's not going to happen. And so I had this energy that was present,
ah,
and the energy wasn't. I'm not one to drop energy once it comes up, right? So
mhm.
sure, the festival says no, but perhaps it's bigger than any festival. And
Yeah.
so as I just tuned in for like a second, like, all right, how I'm gonna flow with this, then it just hit me the way it wants to come out. And then that was beyond any festival, beyond any stage, beyond any one location. And that's to initiate the Black Divinity Meditation Day, a day to, inspire people, particular people of African descent, but for anybody, but specifically for Black people who
Mm,
identify with Black, to learn about meditation and engage in the process of meditation and just tap into our divinity. Take the time to be still and turn the focus inward as a collective. So,
mm.
like, be individual for a second, but do it as a collective, and get that wave going to get more people involved in that process.
And did you pick a particular day for any significant reason?
Well, April 6th was the day that was I think was it the new moon? I
Mm,
believe it was a new moon at that time, and I
right.
wanted to coincide with the new moon.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the sisters, who the first sister actually, Empress Nadine McNeil, I spoke with her, and then she just did some research on what that day is, and then she found some information saying that back in like the 1800s, I forget exactly when, the early 1800s or something like that, there was a law passed in New York that made it illegal for more than three people to gather at one time. In New York, they passed that law on April
I
6th back in the early
remember that.
1800s,
I
and
remember that.
it was very significant. So
Right. Oh, good. That's a nice take back kind of
mm,
experience. Thank you. That's beautiful. So before we go into that detail, let's go back because you've been in Ubud for, is that over 15 years? Is that what I
in
read?
in in Bali for
In
15
Bali.
years. Yeah, I just had my 15-year anniversary, September 4th, 5th.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
didn't
and
meet you when I was down there. I was there in 2016, I believe. I was down there for a couple months and
mm,
in the low system and met Nadine there. Yeah, and had a great time there. But it was uh, uh, Bali is a very special place. And so, what drew you to there to make that your home? Tell me.
Yeah, it is a story. It's a trip, like, because it
Mm.
wasn't a place where I was like, oh, I'm going. I never heard of Bali before I went, and it
Yeah.
was, but I did get sent that direction via this encounter I had with this clairvoyant woman. You know,
Mm.
this is like if you could rewind back to 2003, January at the top of 2003, and I was just in a bookstore in San Francisco. I'm originally from San Francisco, and this woman comes up to me. She's like, "You got some real strong spirit guides around you, and they're communicating with me, and they're telling me to talk to you because there's some information to share." I'm like, "Okay," and I've been on this path for a minute, so um, I'm open to see what she had to say. So, but she gave me a
Mm.
card, and on the card it was like, clairvoyant and tarot readings, and at that time I had never had a tarot reading. And I saw tarot reading. I thought she wanted some money or something. I was like, oh. But as soon as I had the thought, she was like, don't worry about money because it's real important. So if you have time, then we should meet. So I was like, all right,
Mm.
cool. Well, if I don't have to come out the pocket, it's all good. Let's meet up. So we met up the next day, and did a tarot reading, spoke about a variety of things that was happening in my life at the moment. And then she just started like bringing in information, and she kept saying the words, this is what they're showing me. They're showing me, you're going to come into some money soon, and you're going to do a lot of traveling. And she mentioned Australia, and she mentioned this word Derek. um, she didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it was. She just said, this is what they're showing me, and there's other information that there's there, but they're not showing it to me. Um, so like cool, and some other stuff as well along with that. And
Mm-hmm.
at that point in time, I didn't even have a passport. I wasn't thinking about traveling outside the states or anything. I was traveling a lot in the states, but not thinking outside yet. And so I logged it, but I just logged it. I was like, all right, cool, whatever. And and so after that session, though, I went and did a Google search as to what Derek word, what was that word? And so I found out that Derek is an Aboriginal tribe in Australia, and the
Mm-hmm.
city, which is now
Mm-hmm.
Sydney, was once that tribe's land.
Mm.
So I was like, okay, another note, but still, it didn't have any
Mm.
relevance for me at that time. But a few months later, I came into some money. I came into enough paper where I could travel where anywhere I wanted to go. I can go multiple places.
Nice.
So I
Nice.
was like, all right, I'll go on a little adventure. I'll go to Sydney and just, see what's happening with it.
Right.
But I wasn't going to go directly straight there. So, I love Thai food. So I was like, I'll go to Thailand, check it out. and, and so I was dealing with this travel agent, and she said, I could have a free stop in between Thailand and Sydney, just as long as it's along the same route. And so
Mm.
I did some research online. And then that's when I found a site talking about Bali. I was like, oh, that place looks dope. I'll check it out. And so that's how I got to Bali. Ended up staying there 10 days, and after that had a great time, a wonderful time. There's a whole nother story that's involved with that, I could say for another time. But I had a great time, and it really impressed me. And so continued my trip, went down to Australia, had a great time down there as well. Went to Fiji, and then went back to the Bay. And
Mm.
but I was so juiced off of Bali, I went back 2 months later, and
Ah,
on my second
okay.
trip, met some crew of b-boys that was there, some young breakers.
Really?
They was dancing on the beach, and
Wow. Okay.
they had a little radio truck with some dude on the mic and a DJ. And so I was like, oh, they got a little scene popping over here, a little small one. It was all hella young, like kids, like 15, 16, 14,
Mm.
around there. And was hanging out with them for a little bit. It was real cool, but it really really touched my heart. And so after that, did hella traveling. Like I did ended up doing a tour through Asia. I was deep in the spoken word scene at the time. So
Okay.
spoken word, I had a rap album out. I had a play I co-wrote with this jazz musician. Was touring that around the state. So I was getting some good buzz. Ended up getting connected with this tour going through Asia, and ended up sailing from Japan on a Japanese activist themed cruise ship from Japan all the way to India,
Mm.
and then stayed in India for a week attending the World Social Forum. And after that week, which was filled with like, pretty much organizations from all over the world who come together fighting for different, bringing their issues to the table, kind of
Mm-hmm.
the antithesis of, they have the World Economic Forum with all the businesses and
Mm-hmm.
governments and what. This is for
Mm-hmm.
activists and NGOs and nonprofits and stuff who come together for this forum. And
What is
so
the
it's,
name of the cruise again? It was an activist cruise. Is that right?
yeah, Peace Boat.
Peaceful.
It's a Japanese
Okay.
activist cruise
Okay.
ship
Oh,
where
nice.
they go to these different, each port that they stop in, it's a round the world cruise, and each port that they stop in, they bring speakers to come aboard and speak about what's happening in the country.
Wow.
So
Okay.
speakers, sometimes performers, and they'll have lectures. So when the ship stops in the port, the passengers have the option of doing the normal sightseeing tour, or they can go do something as an educational tour and learn about what's
Hmm.
happening directly, or contribute to a
Ah,
community,
okay.
stay in a village, depending on where they
Sure.
stop.
So the cruise line puts it together and just makes it an activist. Oh, it's smart. Smart of them. Okay.
Well, it started off as from activists, so it's not like just a cruise ship that does
Okay.
activist stuff. It's
Okay.
literally ran by activists.
Okay.
It started from a little boat of activists who wanted to make peace make have better relations between Japan and Korea, and they had a little boat, and they
Mm-hmm.
would sail to Korea and meet activists
Mm-hmm.
from Korea and try to establish,
Mm-hmm.
promote peace, and then it grew and grew and grew.
Got it. Okay.
And
And
so,
what okay, so were your spoken word, your music, it seems like your pieces, and it was like, oh, I didn't know about that part until we sat down and went, oh, let me, all I knew was the meditation. So what else did you get involved in Bali?
well, so I didn't move. I didn't intend. I ended up moving there later. So after I got back to the states from India, it was the day after the Super Bowl at the time when Justin Timberlake pulled off Janet Jackson's the
Yeah.
Nipplegate thing or
Right.
whatever, orgy or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And I got it was the I got back the day after that from India, and I just had spent a week with activists from all over, where people bringing their different issues to the table, meeting indigenous peoples from all
Mm-hmm.
over the planet, witnessing and having conversations with people fighting for water, all kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. So to go back to the states and have a nipple, Janet Jackson's nipple, be the biggest thing, on the news. I had a reverse culture shock. I was like, what the hell is wrong with this place? You feel me? It's
Right.
like,
Right.
and I was like, I need to go somewhere else for a little bit, like really
Right.
touch down somewhere, not live. I still wasn't on that tip, but I was like, I want to go soak up a spot. And so I came to Bali and for 5 months. And in that 5 month period, I started DJing because I brought all my music and I had to make some type of money. So I ended up connecting with this one venue. I started DJing there. Then from that, I started throwing some parties, connected with the young hip hop community kids that was there. Would bring them in to come and dance while I was spinning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Would grab the mic at parties and started MCing, which, was influenced other people to start MCing in Bali. And so the hip hop scene really, it was cool. Like it was like a bit of home in Bali. You feel me? So,
Right.
um, as well as just the Balinese culture, which is inherently deeply
Mm.
spiritual and cultural in and of itself, it
Yeah.
just provides the opportunity for new experiences and for one to really turn the scope inward to see what's going on with one's own personal, story and narrative and where it's going. And it's particularly coming from the Bay, which is very, culturally conscious, and then to go into a situation where I'm like the only black dude, like one of the only ones, like I would bear that. There was like a couple other people who were living at the time, like literally a couple other
Right.
black folks living there.
Right.
And
Right.
then to have, the experience of people staring at you and some people laughing and some people running out of fear, just the whole spectrum of reaction because they never seen somebody who looked like me.
Mm-hmm.
And so to really learn from that, as well as making new friends and just everything was new, everything was fresh, right? So um, because of that, after 5 months, I went back to the Bay and everything was different. So 2 weeks later, I came back and then didn't go back for 5 years. So
Wow. Wow. So 5 year stint. Wow, you really did jump in early and got involved. So did the spirituality tell me about your spiritual path and where did that develop?
so in the Bay, I mean, I came in when we were speaking about my name, right? So my birth name is Kamau Abayomi. It's quiet warrior of noble promise, born to bring joy. 70s baby. So, my parents were in the, in the Black art scene in San Francisco. My
Mm-hmm.
mother was in the theater arts. She had a theater publication, was, coach for acting and directing, doing some high school drama teacher. So, I was on her hip while she was directing, and or in the corner painting, painting with the paints and the crayons and
Nice.
stuff.
Nice.
And so I grew up in that aspect. My pops was just like, you want to give back the culture, of where we come from. So he selected a name that is representative of the difference. So Kamau is Kenyan, or Kikuyu, East African. Abayomi is Yoruba, Nigeria, been in that region. And Bakari is Swahili, which is, a trade language that can be used. And then I wouldn't discover later until my path as I consciously became aware of my growth spiritually, which went through the ancient Kemetic system with Osiris Set,
Hmm.
and and then much later, like learning about the Ka, the Ba, and the Ab, and how Ka is the first two letters in my first name, Ba is the first two letters in my middle name, and Ab is the first two letters of my last name. So the Ka being the spirit, the Ba being the soul, and the Ab being the heart, and how that's intertwined in my name,
Mm-hmm.
and in learning these particular things, the essence being that all the energies that exist outside and in existence also exist within. You feel me? So what is within is without. What is without is within. And there's no separation between the elements and who we are on the deepest of levels. That which people call God and who we are. There's no separation whatsoever. And it's not like God is within me. Sure, it's God is within me. God is outside of me. God is running through me. God is flowing
Right.
around me. God is me. God
God
is you. God
is.
is all. God is. Exactly. You feel me?
God
And
is.
so the the path of learning is a path of disappearing into that knowledge, disappearing
Mm-hmm.
into that knowing
Mm-hmm.
that we are all that is, and that
Mm-hmm.
started when I was 18. You feel me? So I've been on it for a minute.
A minute. A long minute. A long minute. Good for you. Have you working in Bali? I had the experience as a guest in a one of the traditional family homes. They all have the temple inside their home. They all have family temples,
Mhm.
and the family I was staying with was having their 500-year anniversary of their temple, and they brought in a Brahmin priestess who I got to spend some time with and got to work with after a while, and that was a introduction to me because I really hadn't looked at the Balinese spiritual path. Was I found it beautiful, found it impressive, found it very real. I tend to take a kind of a dismissive um, look at religions in relationship to the communities. But I noted when I would walk into a temple, I would feel their presence. And to one point, I felt a little push, get out. I was like, oh, excuse me, snap, you're not paying attention. So I went, okay, respect that. And so when I was invited to come in and work with them, I was like, let me understand why and who and the connection of that. And they really gave me an understanding of looking at the ancestral line as, kind of your soul family is what I really understand it as, and they're there to help you if you'll pay attention.
Mhm.
So it was that very close connection to the other side that was very real in Bali that I had never experienced any other place.
Right.
And so I wondered if you found the same experiences there, and uh, who you work. Did you bring your family with you?
For sure. I mean, Bali is for anyone, whether one is aware of their spiritual progress and growth and development or not. It's just the veil is extremely thin in Bali
Mm,
because they cultivate their
yes,
entire way of life
around
honors
it.
that
Yes.
which we don't see with
Mm-hmm.
these two physical eyes,
Mm-hmm.
and because of that, there's an amplified energy there. So everybody's going to get a mirror held up to themselves to see where they are in their own personal growth and development. And
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be a lot of choice points provided to for one to explore different aspects of their spirit. And Bali, they honor the light and the dark, right? So it's
Yeah.
not like they're not, forces around that will push you into your shadows to feed off
Mm-hmm.
of, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
that energy is
Mm-hmm.
there. So it's a
Right.
person's, here you can go this way, or here you can go that way, which you gonna do. And depending on what one chooses, one will be met with more of that energy, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And wherever there's an impediment, that will come up, and then if it's looked at, then it can be cleared out and you can move further into more of that. If it's not cleared up, then karma can come into play, all kinds of stuff can come into play, depending on a person's personal journey.
Right.
So yeah, for sure. um, I personally, it like for the longest, I didn't really dive into Balinese culture. I was always like, look, I got my own system, I got my own spiritual, I got my own homies, I got my guys.
Right.
Y'all do your thing. It's all good. If I'm invited to something, cool. But I'm definitely not trying to push and be like, oh, I need to get up in there and be a
Right.
part of this ceremony and that
Right.
sort. I mean, nah, that's y'all thing. Do your thing. All good. I can recognize the correlates, right? Because we dealing with energy, so I can recognize the correlates. But I'm not on the
Yes.
bow tip to um, entities that I'm not I'm not connected with. You feel me? So,
Right. Right.
but that being said, um, over the last few years, just as I'm dealing deeper with my own energetic expansion and growth, it's it doesn't matter where you're at. So if a person is growing and developing their personal power and their connection with the elements, the natural
Right.
elements that exist all on this planet, then wherever
Right.
you're going, you're going to get that response, and that connection is gonna meet you.
Very
So,
true.
like for example, Ganesha, the energy of Ganesha, right? The
The elements,
crossroads and
warrior. Yes.
remover of
Protector.
obstacles, right?
Remember obstacles.
So, like,
Yes.
I've never bowed to Ganesha ever in my entire time in Bali, right? Like, it's just, yeah, Ganesha. Okay, I'm not Hindu; it's not my thing.
Right.
Um, but I was at my homie who's Balinese, his temple land on his he has his father is an architect who would build temples around Bali, and so he has a family land. And I was at this particular land one day on Nyepi. Nyepi's the Balinese day of silence every year, or it's 24 hours of silence,
Yeah. I
no
was
light,
there
no
for
lights,
that.
all that stuff.
Yeah.
Is there? Yeah, that's
The
what's
one,
up.
I got a story. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody has a Nyepi story, right?
Yeah.
So on this particular nepi, I was at my homie's land, and so on his land there are different temple areas, right? And one of
Mm-hmm.
these areas has a Ganesha in it, like a really beautiful,
Mm.
statue of Ganesha inside. There's the story that's written on the ceiling of it. There's light shining up. It's really beautiful. And I had spent the day in silence and just communing in the different, just taking in the energy of the different areas of the compound, the different temple grounds, right? And so when I went into the Ganesha area, the room that had his statue, I just went up and I was just looking in his eyes and I was just observing. And then with no volition of my own, my arms just went up into this posture. It's just like round, like, and I'm just like, like, okay. And then the energy just released and my arms went down. And it
Ooh.
was a trip because like right after that moment, it was like I felt like I just connected with a long lost homie or something. So a homie I ain't never seen in a long time. And it's just like, hey, what's up? That was the feeling.
Right.
It was a trip. So when I walked out of there, it was like, okay, cool. And so check this out. There was a situation where right before Nyepi, there's this dude who I owed some money to. He was hitting me up for this money. Now it was a big misunderstanding. Long story, I ain't got to go into it. But ultimately, I was like, all right, whatever. I'm gonna get you this money, right? Even though I didn't think it was just what happened, I was like, whatever. I don't deal with being in debt with people like that. And
Mm-hmm.
so that happened. So the day after Nyepi, I went back to my space, back home, and I'm checking my messages. And then via this exchange, I brought up some information, my truth. I spoke my truth to this particular person. And then this dude responded in a very defensive way. But what he ultimately said was, look, I don't want the money. Keep it. Keep it. I don't want it. I don't want it.
Oh,
You know,
I pulled up Ganesha so people can see that posture. 'Cause I was like, oh, yeah, I recognize that. Okay,
oh shit.
right. There's Mr.
Yeah.
G.
Yeah. Similar. Like the arm was like that. I was like this. It was like,
Yeah,
yeah, look, yeah,
yeah.
similar
He'll
trick.
do that. He'll do that.
Anyhow,
Okay.
and
So
so
you. Oh, good.
right
So that
right
was a
there,
gift.
Yeah,
Right.
right there, that little obstacle was gone, and then that obstacle allowed me to go back to, because I was about to go back to the States, and I needed that paper, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
and I was prepared to not go, just to get this dude out of my space, my field. You feel me? So
Mm-hmm.
that was removed, and I, kept my journey onto the States. So I say that to say that wouldn't have
Thank
happened
you.
if I'm just not on my own path. You feel me? It's like,
Right.
because
Right.
energy, it's like the saying, real
Right.
recognizes real, like energy recognizes like energy, and so
Mm-hmm.
if that personal power is created, then whatever space you step into, that energy is going to emanate in that field, and the
Yeah.
energy is going to respect it. You feel me?
Right.
Regardless
Right.
of whatever name you call it, Ganesha, Legba, whatever you want to call the energy, Sabik, whatever you want to call the energy,
Right. Right. You called
right?
upon it and it assisted.
But
I
but here's the thing: I didn't call upon it. It assisted anyway. I didn't call upon
Well, now there's a thing. Good point. Thank you, because it wasn't a conscious
it
request
on a
as a
conscious
prayer,
level, right?
right? As a
Right,
prayer would
right.
be, but it's like the tarot reading. They can see around you. That's what I
Yes,
love about tarot. It's a
for sure,
nice, good snapshot of what's going on,
for
and
sure.
honoring always does that. And that was one of the things I was reminded of. If I would just recognize, honor, think about my grandparents, they would help me.
Mm,
And I cannot tell you how many times I've had and I have created an altar space just so I do that because it is not in my memory. I didn't know my grandparents. So
mm,
for me to consciously go, okay, I'm going to, hey, grandma, and not have a physical connection or a memory of, to do that was a work. But when I did, new thoughts came in, new opportunities came in, and I just went, "How does that work?" But
mm,
it do, it do, and that veil again of that space between the realms we cannot see and what that's limited we can with these 3D bodies.
for sure.
So good for you. All right, so you got Ganesha working with you. All
Yeah, and it's funny now. Every time I see the Ganesha thing, it's just like, "What's up, homie? What's going on?" It really isn't on some, like
right,
it's like that's a
hey,
homie,
dude.
that's the peer, and it's the same with a lot of these elements. It's that
Right,
connection. It's like, it's just a physical representation via these stories what already exists within here. You know what I
right,
mean? So there's the
right.
reverence that's given. Simultaneously, there's not the giving away of power to something,
Very
because
good
that's what
difference.
there's
Very
a big
good. Let's talk
there's a
about the
big
discernment. Thank you.
you feel me? It's a big subtle difference
Thank you.
between
It
honoring
matters.
and giving away power. You know.
Right. 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 And I like to look at all deities on this planet that have been in this realm for us to have to make those choices and going, well, they were all here once, whether you were humanoid or, I'm not worshiping the reptilian or insectoid deities that have been worshipped on this planet, but however, somebody's on this planet and did something. And I can respect the work and the effort and their willingness to help on this side because because I look at myself and I was kind of joking, and there's always a joke in Thailand. The last thing Buddha said was, "Don't make a statue of me." They're everywhere, and I jokingly thought, well, what would I say about that? And I'd say, you know what, don't or do just say hey, and so I can smile, but I can also other one on that path because that's what my path was on the planet. So let it doesn't change. It looks like I'm frozen, but I think I'm still moving.
Yeah, I got
So that path hasn't changed, and I'd still do the same thing whether I was in the body or not. So I can respect the. I call it in politics. We call it tug the forelock. Just like okay, snap. Tip your hat and
you.
go thank you for your work. And I like to do it in the living or in ethereal from someone on another time or another plane that I can
Right,
respect their help and thanks. It's cool like that. We can do that. We can say
for
hey,
sure,
and people will help
for
or
sure.
beings.
The funny thing is, like, they're saying that we are our ancestors, right?
Mhm.
Like, we were doing this already back then as well,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
and the assistance that's coming to us now is often from ourself and what we would consider the future.
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
When we're
Oh, yes, the time thing. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
You feel me? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
and you think about it, like when we're doing healing work, right? Like people who do trauma healing,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going back. What if we're doing working with somebody who's taking you into a state of a theta state or a hypnotic state and bringing you back to a situation that happened when you were a child? You're essentially time traveling. You're
Mm-hmm.
traveling back to when you were young and
Mm-hmm.
reconfiguring the energy that heals the situation that
Right.
connects to this present so it moves forward, correct? So that's
Right.
time traveling right there. Now, if you
Mm-hmm.
think about any time when you were young or even when you were older, whenever, when you were in a situation that was really difficult and hard, yet somehow you felt a presence with you, yet somehow you got out of that situation. Like, how the hell did I get out of that? You feel me? It's because the work is being done by our connections, whether it's this vibration, like in this consciousness as as our personality, or another aspect of our consciousness that is assisting us in doing that, right? Just
Indeed.
as in this physical thing, just as you as Phyllis, me as Kamal can go back to a childhood trauma and heal it
Mm-hmm.
and then clear it in
Mm-hmm.
this particular moment and move forward from there. It's the same
Right.
process, you feel me? So
Right.
that's at the essence, that's when people say all is one. That's the core of it right there. It's like
Right.
all is one. We are assisting ourselves as we assist seeming others,
Yes.
back in ancient Kemet, Atlantis, China, Russia, wherever it is, we had lifetimes doing these particular things. Now everybody's story is different. Everybody has different source points. I think some spirits are like, all right, I'm gonna just continue in this lineage, just this one
Mm-hmm.
lineage in this
Mm-hmm.
one society. Now on a soul level, that might take hella long for growing, but that's a choice point that somebody
Sure.
may do that.
Mm.
Other souls are like, look, I'm gonna dip in. I'm gonna be, I'm gonna have experiences as lifetimes as an African man. I'm gonna have experiences in lifetime as a Chinese woman. I'm gonna have experience lifetimes as a gay Russian dude. I'm gonna have experience lifetime as a Native American. I'm gonna experience lifetime as a Scottish dude. You know what I mean? Multiple
Yeah.
lifetimes that, and the wisdom from that fuels the soul, which can take
Yeah.
that information and impart it in whatever incarnation is necessary for it to move forward to grow in the experience, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
like for example, and why I say why I've been to Japan 9 times is because I had lifetimes here,
Mm-hmm.
intimate lifetimes. I'm going to places and having full memories of like, whoa, I found a spot the last time I was here where I had a dream when I was 16 years old where I was in this dream. I was this Japanese school teacher, a woman, the school teacher, and I was in her consciousness and interacting with all these different kids. Last time I was here, I went and I found that school. I was in the exact same position I was in that dream. I have
Ah.
a video of that. And I just sat there tripping and it was just flooding back to me. I was just tripping out like, holy shit. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
all of these different things shows us that we go beyond just this physical embodiment. This
Sure.
gonna go,
Yep.
right?
And
And some
go and
choose to
come and
it's
go
go
again.
coming and going and going. It's the we
Mm-hmm.
waves on the ocean. You feel me? We
Mm-hmm.
waves. We peep in, we dip
Mm.
out. We waves on the ocean. And so we don't
Right.
cling so hard to this. We don't cling to it. We acknowledge, we embody it, we own it because yeah, we're in it. We've chosen this for sure. But we don't say this is the end all be all of it because we are all different things. We
Right.
exist in so many different frequencies on so many different levels and so many different dimensions. So, you know, if you want to limit yourself to just this, so be it until you realize that you are more.
Right. Right. Then
you
yeah,
know?
it just opens up a new door of opportunities. And let me go back because I wanted to talk about the past and the future, and
Mm.
going back to the April 6th day, because you, in particular, because you picked a specific day of pain and healing that with a deeper call for let's go deeper with that. And let's tear into that and what that means for us because I know you'll do it again next year and we get ready for 2020. We can talk about
Actually, Actually, even before next year, I'm considering doing it for like like around the winter solstice, so like December 21st or something. I have one as
excellent.
well.
Yeah, good, 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 good,
Um,
good.
so yeah, more info on that later.
Okay.
Um, so the thing with Black Divinity Meditation, right? So black, when black in reference in this particular term is a double entendre, right? There is wanting people who identify with black to get involved in the process of meditation. And Perhaps as one goes deeper into that meditation, deeper into the black, when we close our eyes, we go into that blackness and realize the
Mhm.
source of the light is coming from the black, that primordial essence of which all existence emerges from that blackness. Then you can recognize the divinity that exists, right? So it's not just black skin, because we're brown really, but we'll say black, but
Yeah.
black is the
Uh-huh.
primordial essence from which
Yeah.
all emerges, right?
Oh, a
And
nice
so,
double entendre. Good for you. Yes. Go deeper.
right, and so this is a universal thing,
Yes.
right? But other communities already know and are engaged in the process of meditation. They're engaged in meditative practices already,
Hmm.
and not as full collectives, no, but in terms of the knowledge of it, particularly like in Asian societies, meditation is just all through it. Whether everybody's
Right.
doing it or not is not saying that at all. They're not, but it's still an accepted thing within the culture, and many
Hmm.
people, millions, are engaged in it.
Hmm.
Europeans are also now really engaged in meditation and yoga and these different practices that allow one to tap into their primordial essence, that blackness. Unfortunately, we are not as involved in that to the degree that we can be. And being that they come from these practices, originate from us, this peace state, this ability to be completely in tune with nature, to be in that space of connection, of expansion, to be in that space of full creativity is just natural to us, right? But
Yeah.
we had it extracted from us because we were placed in a situation that caused us to turn look to we have to focus on our external just for the basic survival, right? So now it's for us to reclaim what we once knew and turn the scope
Hmm.
back inward to that essence, that divine essence of which we are. And then from that space, even if it's just for a moment, tap into that. And then from that space, allow it to come forth and guide us through our day, right? And just a little bit, if a person can do that and start to notice how it has that effect, then perhaps they'll want to do it again
Yeah.
and then add it as a part of their life. And if that happens, then we can connect on a collective level far more intuitively, because now we're accessing the intuitive wisdom that exists in that blackness, because we can't access it until we go there. We can't
Right.
access it if we're
Right.
constantly go 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 go,
Yeah.
defend 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 defend, fight 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 fight,
Yeah.
fight or flight freeze, all these different things. We
Sure.
got to get still. We got to
Right.
be we got to sit down and shut up
Mm-hmm.
and listen
Mm-hmm.
and
Think
listen. I'm gonna say
and
that one more
listen.
time. And listen, not
Mm-hmm.
talk, not talk. Wait till you have something to contribute that comes from the innate wisdom, then you can talk.
Right.
Until then,
Right.
listen and
Yes.
really listen within first.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to teach. That's what we're trying
Right.
to guide folks into, and
Good.
that's what it's about. And then once that happens within our own community, then we can go and connect with other communities from Jose. So, okay, I know what meditation is about. It's not just for Asians. It's not just for Indians. It's not just for you white people who are in yoga classes. It's not just for them. It's for
Right.
everyone to
Yeah.
participate in.
Yeah.
And so when they have the Global Meditation Day, which they do every year, then we can go and be represented in that. Because right now, if you look at who's participating, it ain't much of us. You feel me? So because we don't know about it, we still think it's the devil or
Hmm.
Satan
Right.
and all these
Right.
different things,
Right.
but it's not. Be
Yeah.
still and know.
Thank you. Pull it back from the roots we do have, and I hear you with that as specifically as Americans or diasporans, as I like to think of us, and we are part of the diaspora from our indigenous connection to the earth, to the mother, and so that's what's been lost, and we have been put in a matrix not of our own making.
Mm,
And the trauma of that reality of living, surviving, getting a job, making all the pieces of our life trying to make sense, survival mainly.
yeah,
It's been very hard to go back and find when you've lost connection to your mother. How do you survive? And I
right.
remember having a guest of African women who were in law or judges from different nations in Africa, and there was a Ugandan Supreme Court justice, and we were sitting around talking about the differences that African Americans uh, perceive of Africans and Africans perceive of African Americans. And they said three things. One, they thought we all knew our history because they saw the movie Roots. And I'm like, no, no, not true. Second, they thought we were all rich because they saw the Coming
Cosby's or
to
something.
America, Coming to Coming to
Coming to
America
America.
movie. Remember that one?
Yeah, yeah.
And the Cosbys, yes, that brought that whole different world and different world. That was part of the history of the 80s and 90s. And that we all chose not to ignore Mother Africa because they saw the stories, but they didn't connect that the mothers were separated from their children, and so there was the culture and the language was lost, and we didn't know our roots, and they were just shocked. And I went, oh, you didn't get that part of the story. And then there was a reminder. I was there in 2016, and this time of the year 2016, and it was the one of the stories that came back to me as an American was it was done in jest, but it was a different kind of a not sarcastic jest. And it was and it was this was from an earlier phrase, the phrase "elver losers," and it was kind of made about African Americans, like y'all just didn't run fast enough. And I'm like, oh snap, okay, that was a the kind of tongue in cheek. Yes, you were sold because we were tribal, we were warring, and that's just how it rolled. And I went, yeah, there's that tribalism. But beyond that, okay, it's not all roses going back home. And I appreciate Ghana doing its effort to bring folks to come back home. But there was loss. And so for us that are in the diaspora, and now I'm in South America connecting with Afro Latinos here, and we are in every nation. I have not found a
Sure.
nation there hasn't been of African descent somewhere in that culture, living or in the past. So when I'm here and I'm connecting with, it's that indigenous connection that, they're not. Uh, Meditation or spiritual connection is natural. It's not forced upon them by the programming of one church, either the modern religions of that we have today, and particularly for African Americans, if that's all we know is it's the Stockholm syndrome. We are
Mm,
if we have the Christianity belief systems, we are Stockholm syndrome. We have made peace with the masters that have forced us to believe or die. And that's true of Christianity when it launched with its Bible. It was the Crusades that was kill everybody who don't believe. And it was like, oh, it was the Pol Pot of that time or
mm,
the pogroms of that time. So, I keep looking at history. I was a political science major in college and was raised in Catholicism growing up, but was also lucky enough to live abroad as a kid and lived in Islamic countries and Buddhist countries and Taoist countries. And I always saw the difference between the culture and what the book said. And I went, oh, they don't always match. Okay.
mm.
Everybody's got their problems, trying to work it out and trying to figure it out.
For
And so it
sure.
was looking at that collective, okay, but as a human species, and there's always been conflict. It doesn't matter what country I've gone to, there's always the majority minority and colonialism. If they were hit by colonialism, colonialists always took the minority and put them in power. So it was a way to manipulate and control people. So I went, oh, good strategy, how to manipulate countries. And so watching and observing that from around the world that I've traveled, I just kind of went, okay, so what sense do we make out of that? What is consistent that we can all, excuse me, take? And it really goes to the statement you made about real blackness. It is that inward. I said, when you want to see reality, close your eyes. When you want to see an illusion, open them. And
Mm,
so going back to the reality of who we are is in that darkness, in the pool of creation where we all came from and that source. And I remember meeting a guy who was designing the hologram when we first had holograms come up in the 80s. And I was in his basement in Chicago looking at my first hologram, and I went, wow. And understanding it is just a fractal of the whole. and not understanding how that was possible. But then the book Holographic Universe and explained
Mm.
we are just this piece of this whole design, and we contain it all. So God is just God is, and we are the is part. And whether we divide it between the masculine and the feminine, God and goddess, it's still part of the is. The is where it's at. It is the all in all. And I, as a young person, I understood pantheism as God is in everything, but not understood the everything is what really matters, and that sacredness that we take to the planet. I've recently been listening to Hopi prophecies about the evolution of our planet, where we're heading next.
Mm.
And that has only been about, oh, this is a natural evolution of this next civilization, our sixth civilization, which we are currently in, of Homo
Yeah.
sapien, going through its um, move on, as I like to say. It's ready to evolve or die, basically. And as a history major, I went, oh, right, evolution. It's a thing, and whether you're part of it, whether you recognize it or not.
Yeah.
And as we are in this post technology moving into this transhumanism state, that's one way our species has looked to address that. I hear Elon Musk, he's just trying to leave the planet, go somewhere else. I'm like, well, option B if you got the money for that. And for the most of us, it is okay, it's go deep, and yet the truth of the Bible still has the validity of, I can look at the Bible metaphysically and go, yeah, I can see the parallels and see the truth and see the stories that were well hidden in the allegories. And there's lots of allegories, not a little, I think about 18,000 stories, 300 have been verified. So I went, okay, allegory, not a problem. I'm with you there. But looking at the book of Revelation and the evolution of what this time frame that we are in and what matters, and same story is true in all cultures.
Mm.
Go inward, work on your stuff, deal
Mm.
with it, and face it, because it's time. It's time for the evolution day, time, lifetime experience
Right.
to happen. And so we need to use these days, and not just one day a year. That's a part of this is like, no, divinity is something we have to create within ourselves. It's not something we go find. We make it.
Yeah.
We make it.
Yeah. Well, we be it.
We be it. Even
Yeah,
better.
it exists. We don't
Hmm.
have to do anything, but what we're actually doing is clearing the clutter so we can bring it forth because it's there. It's always been there.
It's always been there.
We've just been programmed with so much stuff that it's like it's just gunk over our divinity.
Right.
And
Right.
all the work we're doing, when we remove one of those programs, a light shines through. Remove another program, another light shines through until there's so much that we've done so much of the removal of the gunk that our true shine can now radiate out. That's all we're doing. And it's like, working with children, right? You want
Mhm.
to, when they do something that is reflective of who they are, their light, their brilliance, you encourage it as
Mhm.
opposed to looking at the things that they may be doing incorrectly and just focusing on that, right?
Right.
Not that we give that a pass, but we
Mhm.
really want to highlight the natural beauty that comes from a children. Now, most people as adults are still very much children in the spiritual sense. And so when something happens that someone moves towards that, we want to shine light on that. You feel me? So
Mhm.
like with the Black Divinity Meditation Day, that's why I was asking folks to, take a photo of yourself, or have somebody take a photo when in the beginning in your meditation or at the end or whatever, and then post that just so people can see other people are tuning in and doing the
Mm.
work, and
Mhm.
share that and put that in the sphere because, like
Yeah.
Nadine hit a nice point. She's like, man, they got enough. They didn't see us dance. They didn't see us sing. They didn't watch us play. They didn't see us do all kinds of stuff. We make them laugh. We do all this. Watch what happens when we get still.
I
You feel
love
me?
that quote. I love that from her. I
And we
saw that. I
put
went,
that out there.
yes.
we put that out
Yeah.
on the field, like, all right, let's do this inner work and let the inner
Right.
movement happen, because that's where the charge
Yes.
starts to build up. So when we do
Yes.
actually have action, now it has a deeper purpose. It has a
Right.
more a wider wave can be made with it, because no longer is it just doing it for money's sake, or doing it just to get, your little hustle on, doing it for, selfish purposes. It actually
Yeah.
serves the greater good,
Yeah.
because now the source point has been changed from being a reaction for survival, for fame, for validation. The source point has now become the essence. I'm doing
Internal.
this because
Yeah.
it's a part of who I be, and the
Exactly.
essence which is coming forth. And when
Right.
it's coming from that space, that's when things can really change. You feel me? So,
Brilliant. Yes, and what a visual Nadine gave us with that.
mm,
Wait till we see us going deep, and that's the part that I just warms my heart in more ways than one. I'm just like, you're right. And one of the things I love about your life is the creative that has been in the base of it, and one of the things I've learned about our species that we are recognized in the galaxy for our creativity. We are the creative beings. It is who we are, and the Mayans have a formula for man, that it is time multiplied by our energy or focus, where we put our time that equals our art. And humans are here to create art, but
yeah,
it is simply our effort and our time. And so, yes, our people have a gift of music and rhythm and dance and the creative expression, as all peoples do. And how we have chosen to express it has been appreciated. But let's appreciate it for ourselves, not just the outward, but the inward,
right,
and the depth of who we are. And I appreciate the African pan um, the Pan African deities that are really coming into the forefront. And I have learned them years ago, and again, tipped the forelock and
mm,
appreciated them, and said, all right, help me help them, help me help people. And let's look at all of that. But simply taking the time for me and doing what my own heart calls to do is
mm,
a still and silent moment, because it's not based upon the what's in it value wise,
right.
dollar wise, publicity wise, or what's on my
Sure.
tombstone.
It's,
It's one I can give for me,
it's,
please.
it's balance in all things, right? It's like, if we have activity, we need rest, right?
Mm. Ah, yeah.
If we run, we gotta lay and go take a nap.
Yeah.
We walk all day, we gotta sit down, right? If we're
Yes.
always sitting, we need to stand up, right? If we're always laying about, we need to get more active, right? It's
Mm,
balancing the spheres. If we're not
mhm.
communicate, we gotta communicate more. If we're always silent, we must communicate. If we're always
Ah,
communicating, we gotta be silent. We have to know when and what energy is needed for a given situation. And the
mm,
only way to recognize that is if we can get still enough and tune in to what are the processes that are happening within us. So then when
I
we step into a situation, we know how to be in harmony with it. That's the thing. It's like we there's a pretty much the matrix has predicted everything that we do. All our eyes, like they can something's gonna happen and we're gonna protest. And that's the only thing.
mhm,
They kill one of us, we run the streets, protest, yeah, 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 rah, 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 it dies down.
mhm,
And then
mhm,
another one happened. Oh, angry, rah, 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 it dies down. It's a
mhm.
very predictable
Yeah.
problem reaction, and here's a solution, but there's no solution. It's just problem reaction,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
So
Stir up the problem, and so we can create a reaction.
so you
Yes.
create a reaction. But
Mhm.
what's happening is that because we as a collective have yet to, though I see us moving towards it more and more, we have yet to turn into our innate, our spiritual power, and bringing that and letting that guide whatever the action is. As we start to do that, then we can get some real solutions that can be actually sustainable, that can actually cause systemic change, because the power source is going to be connected with a universal power source, right? And that'll steer their action. So, like, for example, like we praise the Haitian Revolution, right? Because they tapped into the deities, they tapped into the spirit and got
Right.
guidance through that revolution, thus was able to, you know, gain independence. Not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily freedom, but they gained
Mm-hmm.
independence, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's still another element at play that needs to be brought forth for this day and time that is new, because the tendency is to say let's go back and go back to our past, but the past, they failed. Those they failed because we, if it was successful, we wouldn't be in this situation. So something happened. There was a
Yeah.
loophole that allowed
Right.
this energy to come through and manipulate. So what we need to do now is take what worked from the past. Now that's debatable, but one thing isn't debatable is that we gave our power away. That's not debatable. So
Mm-hmm.
whatever is being created in this day and time that's reflective of the now going forward is going to take the essence, which is timeless, the essence of what happened in the past, coupled with the energy that we generated in this time, because we are a hell of way more creative now than we were then, really, because
Mm-hmm.
our creativity is constantly expanding and moving and continuously adding on. So if we apply that to a timeless essence, then something new could be birthed
Oh,
that can see when these different things come in. So like we
right.
praise these groups, we praise the Black Power movement, we praise the Panthers, but they didn't have the full success that they could have had because they didn't have a spiritual base running through what they was doing. So our spiritual base needs to come forth, and it can't be based on giving power away. We can't substitute a white Jesus Christ for the Orishas. We can't do that. We can't go into the like
Doesn't
African
help.
spirituality with the
Yeah.
same mentality that one
Yeah.
had when one was a Christian. It's just not gonna work. You feel me? We gotta
Mm-hmm.
cultivate that innate power and recognize that we are the Orishas. We are that Christ essence. We are all these different divinities,
Yeah.
all these things we give power to. We are that. We are that. And if we can see that in our brother, when we step into a
Yeah.
spot and we interact with our brother, we can see that divinity in them. When we step to our sister, we see that divinity in them, not on some surface shit, but like that's us right there.
Yes.
And coming
Yes.
from that space, coupled with meditation, coupled with meditating together, coupled with meditating as a collective, then we generate our intuition. See, our intuition strengthens when we meditate together, when we
Yes.
truly bond together. I don't mean bond together just like, hey, what's up? We dancing
Right.
together, we rapping
Right.
together. I mean,
Right.
we get still together.
Thank you. The collective
You
consciousness
feel me? We tune into the energies
place.
together. That's
Yes.
what cultivates the intuition. That's what telepathic stuff starts popping off. That's when
Yes.
synchronicity gets strengthened.
Yes.
The cell phones may not be necessary if we do it to a high degree.
Mm-hmm.
In
No,
fact, they won't be.
it is the
Well,
artificial connection when we can tune into each other. And
you feel me?
I've seen it. I've had the privilege of doing a couple Burning Mans and having that experience of the energetics around me just environmentally shift at
Mm,
such a different level because you're just in a creative space primarily. And that's really where, because it's a contrast of the difficulty of the playa, or in different countries, it's different,
mm,
and the creative flow, and that comes together, and you have a collective consciousness that makes manifestation happen very quickly. And I
right.
used to always call Burning Man's as manifestation laboratories. And for us, and I love the thing, it's not going back replacing one uh, glass ceiling belief system of religion with another one. It
Mm,
is going back and digging up your own connection, because
mm,
it's just one taking out one plug and sticking in another, and that's not the plug we need. We are the plug. Let's connect within that. So when we think about that, and when we can gather, and instead of being a reactionary people, um, of being manipulated by the outside world, our matrix lies,
mm,
how do we come together on a regular basis? Because I'm looking at, all right, once a year is not enough, twice a year is not enough, and I don't want to spend 99.99 on a meditation course. I'm like, oh, come on,
for
there's
sure.
got to be a cleaner and easier way to connect. And I'm looking at groups, and I'm trying to pull them up. I have two groups, and I've one that I worked with, a meditation Mondays for men on Facebook, and then women who meditate, sisters who
Mm,
meditate, that have really just creating our own ways of find going inward.
for
So
sure.
how do you encourage that with as you travel and speak?
to just do it. And first, you have to do it. A person has to do it, right? And get in the consistency of doing it,
Mm,
and then connect with other people who are also in the consistency of doing that, and then slowly ripple out from there. Now, it takes the commitment of a group to do it consistently. If there's no commitment, then it won't happen consistently. And the consistency is needed in order to generate the charge.
mm,
So for example, let's say, if someone is has a park that they near their home or whatever in the community, and they dedicate the time to meditate in that park, say every Sunday morning at a certain time, they really dedicate it. Not only are they going to strengthen themselves, but they're going to charge the energy of that
yeah.
park,
Right.
right? And it'll
Right.
gravitate other people who are ready for that. Because this is the thing, we can't force this on anybody, right?
No.
People have to be ready for it. They
Right.
have to have had the necessary seeds planted, so when that moment is pops, it's ready to sprout, and then they come into the meditation and they're ready to get down. And that
Right.
goes for anything. We can't be forced. And so, um, I don't have a cape on my back. I may look like it, but but I'm not out trying to save everybody. Like I released the savior thing a long time ago. All I can
Mm,
do is strengthen myself to the best of my ability and impart my knowledge from my experience. And whoever's with that, then let's roll. Whoever's not, I'm
mhm.
gonna keep it flowing anyway. You feel me? Because I see my trajectory. I see where it's going, and whoever's ready for that, let's go. And it doesn't
Right.
necessarily even mean, at a certain point, it's cool. Like I have certain people who I got a real strong bond with, who I've meditated with, who I've connected with on a deep level with, and we be sending out thoughts, and we pick them up. The synchronicity pops off,
Right.
the telepathy pops off for
Yep.
real.
Yep.
So,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
and how we were speaking about the veil being thinner, collectively on the planet the
Ah,
veil is
yes.
thinner, right?
Yes.
So what's
Yes.
happening is everything is being amplified. So if a person
Mm-hmm.
is moving in a direction of further expansion in their spirit, then they're going to have more things coming toward them that
Sure.
assist in that process.
Yeah.
If a person is stuck in the rut of the matrix, then more of that energy is going to come into their field.
Right.
So it's
Right.
really, really crucial for people to look at their choices right now. Like everybody, look at your choices. If you have that inclination to sit in the morning, sit in the morning. Like really prioritize it, because everything else happening in your life, as stressful as it is, it will continue to be stressful if you do not prioritize your own personal spiritual development first. That
Right.
must be priority, because if
Right.
that's priority, then everything else starts to smooth out,
Thank you.
because you've generated the energy to connect to a higher source, to
Mm-hmm.
bring in that guidance of what to do, when to do it, who to do
Right.
it with, who not to do it with. Go
Thank you.
this way, go that way.
Right.
It won't happen if you don't prioritize your own spiritual development. It won't happen. I've heard hella people talk about meditation like in the negative, like, oh well, I don't need to do that, or that's I can't do it. Everybody can meditate. If you can go to sleep at night, you can meditate.
There we go.
You can
It's a
do it. there's
built-in
there's
skill.
really there's really no excuse right now, and there's so many people who are teaching it, and it's really simple. It's just people have a misconception, and I understand. There's a lot of stuff, a whole lot of misinformation. It's just, but the information to do it properly exists. So if one is drawn to it, find somebody who
Right.
can assist in it.
Right.
Again, even if you're not getting into a deep meditation yet, but if you just sit and just even contemplation or journal writing, things to allow your processes to relax and settle,
Mm-hmm.
it assists, but you have to prioritize it. So these are
Um.
so this is a very practical thing I want to just impart to somebody that they
Thank you.
can do every day. In the morning, when you get up, have your glass of water. You should drink water when you wake up. It's important. Drink a glass
Lemon
of
water,
water, lemon
preferably
water,
lemon water. Yes.
preferably lemon water.
Yes.
Go take your piss. Do whatever you got to do in the bathroom. Go wherever you have a nice serene space. And if it's a difficulty, then just stand. You can go and just sit on your bed. Just
Right.
breathe.
Just breathe.
Just
Yes.
breathe and give thanks.
Mm-hmm. That's
That's
the
it.
first. Yeah. That
Just breathe
alone is
and
just
give thanks.
appreciating the body and you
Right.
yourself, giving yourself thanks. And I'm like, right. I think as a woman, I have a tendency to be in that thankfulness. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for doing that. and rarely do I thank myself. And I noted when I could always pay attention to my bad hair days versus my good hair days. And I went,
Mm,
oh, I'm not in appreciation of all that I have. And it was that shift in me that made the world look a whole lot nicer. And
mm,
I have a lot more to be thankful for. And
for sure.
that 1 minute in the morning, and I understand the moms who have children that wake them up that don't get that 1 minute, but they do go to sleep eventually, and you get that minute somewhere before you fall asleep, whether it's morning or night. And my favorite is a walking meditation, because I'm not the stillness girl, but I can walk for
Hmm.
miles and miles. And I'm here by a river, so I walk by the river and spend time listening, just simply to listen, not having to think, solve problem solve or do, just to enjoy the space of listening and not
For
having.
sure.
So I grateful for that and love that is what we need going forward. So I'd like to ask, what time is it? Where are we at spiritually? And you've brought it home with, it's time to go inward and it's time to be aware of that. Is there any other you want to impart to us where we passed, we're still going on. I'm going to keep talking.
For
I'm not
sure.
going to worry about the time, but it's
For,
going, what do we need to know next is more important.
we need to know what's going on outwards. You go within, but you also want to know the game mechanics that's happening around us,
Yeah.
because there is a game at play that doesn't
Yeah.
want us to go in.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a whole lot of distractions.
Mhm.
There's a lot of psychological operations that are being pushed upon us. There are a
Mhm.
lot of perpetrators within our community of these
Yeah.
psychological
Yeah.
operations,
Right. Right.
and we got to recognize them for what they are. Unfortunately, and some people just don't want to acknowledge it, but it's just real. Our music is shit. Our music is keeping us low, really, really, really
Ooh,
low.
yes, thank
Really,
you.
I don't care
Thank
how
you. Let's
dope it is.
talk about music.
I'm not talking
Yeah,
about
yeah, yeah,
talent.
yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
has nothing to do
Nope,
with talent. It
nope,
has
nope.
nothing to do with
You
how
know,
dope a beat is. Beats are dope. Music is dope. Frequency is distorted. It's the
yes,
frequency that is jacking us up.
yes, yeah, yeah,
The
very much.
frequency of the music, and of
And the
course we could.
words.
I mean, we could. But see, I know a lot of artists who got dope words too. That's the thing. So I can hear
Okay,
there
yeah,
is
but
good music out there,
true, there is,
but
but you got to
there's the
listen.
frequency.
Yeah,
If
it's
I got
440.
if I got if I got dope lyrics over like a low trap beat, that the frequency is low, regardless of what I say on the over it. The frequency
Mm-hmm.
is low,
Mm-hmm.
and the spirit is responding to frequency.
Right. You in train. You're in
Right.
training. You're programming yourself with
And
a
we're water.
frequency.
We're three-fourths water. So
Right.
the Dr. Emoto research people are familiar with now. The studies on water and projecting the thoughts
Mm-hmm.
into water molecules and how they transform the shape. So if we're three-fourths water and we got distorted frequencies coming into, what is that doing within us?
Right.
How a
Right.
lot of people are triggered by things they don't even know why they're triggered by it. A lot of people are acting and making certain choices that it's not even a choice.
Yeah.
It's something that's been
It's a
embedded in them
programming.
to work in a certain way, right? So
Mm-hmm.
be
Mm-hmm.
mindful of what you're putting into your system on
Right.
every level. Your
Right.
physical food, your
Yep.
mental food,
Yep.
your creative food, your
Yep.
musical food. You got to see all of this stuff is blueprinting, is getting encoded within us.
Yeah.
And so we got to recognize what codes are harmonious with the direction that we're moving in and what's not.
Right.
You feel me?
Right.
So there's a lot of stuff that I don't listen to from artists who I like and I respect as dope artists. I can't even listen to their music no more just because of the frequency.
Yeah, same. Same. Which is frustrating because I love music and I love singing, but I just went, oh, I
Mm,
don't want to bring that. And one of the things I'm happy to see, because I've been listening, and I do on Tuesdays, I do kind of a newscast of what's going on out there, so we are aware and pay attention to the weather, international, U.S. news, technology, and science.
mm,
But what I did a thing on the 432 hertz and versus the 440 hertz, and there seems to be an app now that will change the music for you instead of you having to do the programming yourself as an artist, that you can somehow manipulate the music. So I'm hoping to see more of that come out so that we can adjust the music. And so there's one other piece that we don't have to do for ourselves. But I'm like, create your own music. Do that.
Create music, yeah.
Do
Just
that.
it's really just we want a goal that we having is to be holistic in our upliftment, right? And so the various aspects of that we express ourselves with, that we express ourselves in, we want to elevate it to a level where it's to the benefit of not only ourselves but
Yes.
everyone else. So
That will
like
feed us.
a big thing with like a lot of the arts that I've been doing over the last 5 6 years has been focused directly on taking wherever level an artist is at and bringing it to a level where they're truly coming into from the spirit, where it can be a healing tool for themselves and whoever
Hmm.
is witnessing or experiencing the
Hmm.
work. So, like I work with artists now, it doesn't matter. You can be a dancer, singer, poet, rapper, whatever. I do these consultations. Like, all right, here's where you can let's do these little things and go deeper. What is really trying to be said?
Ah, very good.
What's the core you
Okay.
speak it to, and let's hit
Sure.
that and bring that forth. So
Brilliant.
unfortunately, if a person is has experiences that have a lot of pain in it, there is ways to express pain in a way that can be liberating and not just being a release, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of what we do is to deal with stress and we
Mm-hmm.
releasing the energy. But if
Mm-hmm.
we can understand it a little bit more, we can transmute the energy where it becomes an actual healing tool,
Excellent.
right? And in
Excellent.
that healing, then of course, then we start to self-generate power. That's the
Right.
thing, because we don't want to grasp at false power, right?
Okay.
The false
All right.
power is the pain. That's the false power.
Mm-hmm.
The real
Ooh.
power is the transmutation of it,
Oh.
where it
Oh,
can
well
be for
said.
healing.
Yes, exactly. All right. Tell me what you're going to be doing in Japan. And what kind of, because you're doing consulting work with other artists. What brings you to Japan?
Well, Japan, as I mentioned in the beginning, is like a spirit home for
You're
me.
connected, right?
So I'm gonna be doing stuff here work wise, but I come here to tune in because it's so serene, it's so
Mm.
quiet that I can just walk these streets. And of course, Japan is one of the most safest places on the planet, so you ain't got to worry about nothing. I could walk around at 2 in the morning and ain't nobody out, and ain't nothing gonna happen. And
Nice.
so I like to temple hop, and nobody in Kyoto they don't go to temples at night. In Bali they go
Okay.
to temples 24 hours. There's always
Right.
people in temples,
Right.
but here nobody goes to temples at night, so I can go and just be by myself in these spaces and really soak up
Mm.
some energy. So that's a primary thing. Like here's where I do a lot of my painting my own personal wings. You feel me? So,
Nice.
but I will be teaching qigong. I teach qigong, so I'll be teaching
Okay.
qigong workshops here, doing sessions every Sunday over in the Imperial Palace. Also, a couple DJ gigs I have here as well,
Nice.
as well as some spiritual consultation for folks as well. So,
Right.
yeah.
And you're there for a couple more. Are you gonna any other places you're traveling to on the planet, or you go back to Bali?
It's still open. I may be going to Dubai to DJ, so I do some DJ gigs. And if I go to
Okay.
Dubai, I may go down to India after that, and
Okay.
then we'll see. It's still open. I haven't got my exit ticket from here yet, so I don't know.
Okay. Well, the solstice will be around soon, and the equinox is coming, so I'm preparing for that and being in alignment with those things. And
Hmm.
one of the, I just wanted to pop up these other screens real quick and give people references for meditation groups. And where can people find you? There's the Black Women Who Meditate group on Facebook. I'm not a admin of any of that group or involved with that at all. I just wanted to
Hmm.
share that for people. And there is another group I have created on Facebook, but it's really not there. I'm a Telegram user, and that's a meditation Mondays for men, where I just do a 10-minute guided
Cool.
meditation and share interviews like this and ask other men to lead. And I want to ask you to do a guided meditation before we get away from today and lead us into a meditation if that's something you're comfortable with doing, so that we can give those who want to move in that direction more opportunities to do so.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, there's go ahead.
was like, and um, I want to come back to talking again about the masculine and maybe do that on another time because it's 2 in the morning and I do want to let you go to sleep. I've been aware
Yeah.
what time it is here. And looking at the masculine and developing the spiritual and the masculine, because that's been one of my concerns. I'm finishing up a book called Owning Masculinity, which was is looking at addressing the abuse of the masculine, particularly sexual abuse of the masculine under patriarchy, and then what do we do about it and how do we heal that? Because as my exposure to the goddess movement when it was starting to pop in 2000, when I paid attention to it, it was still an uneven balance, and I went, this won't work. You can't raise up one without raising up both, and we
For
can't
sure.
ignore half of the population, so that we need to approach this together. And so I want to look at that as a way to do that, and
Mm,
ask you to do a guided meditation for me one day. But you don't have to
for
do it now
sure.
because it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm not going to ask you to do that now.
For
I
sure.
will have you come back and do that for. So
Yeah, I'd
thank
be
you.
honored to.
Thank you, brother. It's been a pleasure speaking with you and
For sure.
learning. I knew you had depth. I was like, you don't hang out in Bali for very long unless you are uh, working with the other side and have built that clarity and that discernment and that depth of being. As Bali is
Mm,
one of those places that will spit you out if you're not supposed to be
for
there.
sure.
So, uh,
Definitely.
right. So that was one of those aha. Pay attention. So thank you again. And
Yeah, thank you.
where can we find you online, and where should we look for you?
So just my name, Kamau Abayomi, is pretty much all my social stuff.
Sure.
So
And you,
Instagram, and then I have another page on Instagram called Silent Warrior Spirit, which is more of my just kind of my observations and writings and such. Um,
beautiful.
my normal account is random stuff. So sometimes it's thoughts and poems. Sometimes it's just my DJ gigs. Sometimes it's
Yeah,
photo.
beautiful.
So
All
those
right.
two, and then music on Mixcloud. So
Okay. And under the same name?
yeah,
Under your
everything
name.
is under the
Okay.
same name.
Beautiful. All right, bringer of joy, warrior. Appreciate your time and
Yeah,
your
thank you.
heart and your focus. It is just an honor to lift it and share it with folks that I love. So thank you,
Blessed.
brother.
Thank you for the invite and the dialogue.
Appreciate it. All right, I'm ending the podcast.
Sure. Peace.